Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
Hi, this is nutritional pharmacist Jerry Hickey. Today we're going to discuss melatonin. Is it important to use during the time of the COVID-19 infection? And the indication is yes. But let's get this straight. There have been no studies, to my knowledge, directly testing melatonin with the current coronavirus. However, melatonin is really important for the immune system. Melatonin is a very good anti-inflammatory nutrient, and melatonin is very safe, and it has an antiviral effect. In fact, it helps prevent a lot of the damage caused by other viruses. Now, melatonin is a hormone. We release it from different parts of the body. For instance, most people know that it's released in a part of the brain called the pineal gland at night when it's getting dark to help us sleep at night. But it has many other activities. The lining of our intestines can release melatonin. It's needed for good digestion. In fact, there's pretty good indication that it helps people with GERD, the persistent heartburn, and help people with irritable bowel syndrome and other conditions that affect the digestive tract. But it's also expressed by immune cells. That's how important it is to the immune system. And they've shown that it's really important for making the immune system more competent. Many of the cells of the immune system, the white blood cells and the antibodies, etc., depend on melatonin for direction. Plus, melatonin helps prevent an overwhelming attack by our own immune system, which is one of the things that happens with the coronavirus. People who are very sick with this virus, which its actual name is SARS-CoV-2, wind up in a hospital fighting, sometimes for their life. What happens is the virus triggers inflammation, and then the immune system itself, latter parts of the immune system, can also trigger inflammation, and it could get to a serious level. And one group is calling it cytokine storm. Another group is saying it's from different chemicals in the immune system called bradykinin storm. It matters, but yet it doesn't, because the end result is it can damage the lungs, the heart, the lining of the intestines, and the brain. In fact, a recent study, very interesting, they looked at hospital patients, people admitted to the hospital with COVID-19. 80% of them had neurological symptoms. And they're finding post-mortem and post-mortem autopsies that somehow the coronavirus is getting into the brain and causing persistent brain damage. So it's important to have things available to us at this point that can help protect our brain, help protect our lungs, help protect our heart, help protect our digestive tract. And melatonin is one of these supplements that can do it. See, the drugs that are being used currently, they really don't have a lot of data behind them. The drugs for the coronavirus, there's not a lot of data on safety on some of these drugs like remdesivir. There's not a lot of data that they really work. In fact, data is coming out that many of them don't work quite so well at all. Plus, they have a number of side effects. In any event, my name is Jerry Hickey. I'm a nutritional pharmacist. I'm also the chief scientific officer over here at Invite Health, which indicates we have a scientific department, which we do. It's loaded with naturopathic doctors, dietitians, clinical nutritionists, and you could get in touch with these people. You may have a question on something I say during this podcast, so let me give you 2 different email addresses. One goes to 5 of my nutritionists, so you get a very quick response, nutrition@invitehealth.com. I'll repeat that, nutrition@invitehealth.com. And the other one is my own, jhickey@invitehealth.com, jhickey@invitehealth.com. Anyway, let's get to some of these reports. This is in the journal Cellular and Molecular Neurobiology. It's several months ago, August 9th. And the title is Coronavirus Disease 2019 and its Neuroinvasive Capacity, meaning it gets into the brain. That's the name of the study. Is it time for melatonin? Now, this is the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio is one of the academic research institutions involved with this, and same with the Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology, University of Madrid. And here's what they're saying. The scientific community still doesn't know how SARS-CoV-2 successfully gets into your brain. I'm going to paraphrase because this is highly technical. Inducing brain damage. So not only does the virus get into your brain, which it shouldn't, but it's causing brain damage. The recent detection of SARS-CoV-2 in the cerebral spinal fluid and in frontal lobe sections of the brain from post-mortem examination has confirmed the presence of the virus in neural tissue. So it is getting into people's brains, which is scary. Here we discuss the COVID-19 outbreak in a neuroinvasive context and suggest therapeutic use of high doses of melatonin, which may favorably modulate the immune response and neuroinflammation caused by SARS-CoV-2. So they're saying that this is the University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio. They're not only saying that you need melatonin for your immune system to fight viruses, but it helps block the inflammation in the brain caused by the coronavirus. So let's go to another. And once again, they haven't designed studies directly using melatonin and SARS-CoV-2, but a lot of doctors are recommending it because they know it has antiviral activity, and they know that it's an anti-inflammatory, and they know it's really safe, and you're supposed to have it in your body anyway. And the problem is a lot of people with compromised immune systems, which means their immune system isn't very effective anymore, they're lacking melatonin. That's part of the compromise to the immune system. And you'll see this in diabetics, you'll see it in people with HIV, you'll see it in elderly people. The activity of melatonin drops with age. And I put a number of my clients on melatonin. In fact, frequently I'm telling people, you need a multivitamin, you need melatonin if you're older or you have a compromised immune system, and a good sign is you're not sleeping well at night that you need it, because it is a sleep hormone. You need vitamin C, you need zinc, you need vitamin D, and a good probiotic, because they're all involved with immune function and they're all involved with reducing inflammation. So here's molecular biology reports. It's from September, so it's a month ago. It's the Department of Pharmacology, Faculty of Dentistry, near Eastern University in Nicosia, Cyprus. So it's Greece, and other departments from their hospital and their university. And they're looking at a protein that's expressed by our immune system. It's called CD147. CD147 works with immune cells, but it's also responsible for the cytokine storm in the lungs. So let me explain. When we talk about how the coronavirus enters our body, a lot of people are familiar with ACE2 receptor sites, that the coronavirus can enter the body through the ACE2 receptor sites. Well, there's a second receptor site called a CD147. It's part of our immune system. It's a tiny protein, and it allows the coronavirus to invade our lungs and our heart and other organs. So blocking CD147 should be a good thing. So let's read what they say here. CD147 is responsible for the cytokine storm in the lungs. That's when the immune system damages the lungs. The immune system is over-triggered by the coronavirus. Inflammation is drastic and it destroys the lungs. Now I'll go on and say what they say. Melatonin use previously was shown to reduce cardiac damage by blocking the CD147 activity. So in other viruses that can attack the heart, that they attach to CD147 receptor sites, melatonin blocked that. So hence, that means that melatonin should be useful with the coronavirus. So let's go on and see what they say. Melatonin, a safe drug, may prevent severe symptoms, reduce symptom severity, and the adverse effects of other antiviral drugs in COVID-19 patients. In conclusion, the use of melatonin, which is reduced in the elderly and immune-compromised patients, meaning their immune system doesn't work well, should be considered as an adjuvant through its CD147 suppressor and immunomodulatory activities. So it modulates the immune system and it helps block CD147. Now here's another report. And I have like a stack of these reports. I'm only going to go through several. This is the journal Molecules. It's September 25th, so it's a couple of weeks ago. It's BioLife Research in San Antonio, Texas, and the University of Göttingen in Germany. Fighting infectious diseases, particularly viral infections, is a demanding task for human health. Okay, so fighting a virus is hard. Yes, we know that. They go on to say, technically speaking, so what happens if you have both the flu, the seasonal flu, and the coronavirus? So this is making figuring things out, how to deal with this virus, even more urgent. Because they're both respiratory viruses, they could both damage the lungs. Now they go on to say melatonin is a molecule that can enhance the host's tolerance against pathogen invasions. They're saying that melatonin helps protect us from infections. Now this is due to its antioxidant activity, anti-inflammatory activity, and immunoregulatory activities. So in other words, it blocks inflammation that can occur in response to a virus or a bacterium, in response to an infection. And it helps regulate the immune system. So on one hand, your immune system attacks and kills the virus, but on the other hand, the immune system doesn't flare up and damage us, which is the end product of what's going on with coronavirus. The immune system is so riled up that it attacks us and damages us. Now, they go on to say melatonin has the capacity to reduce the severity and mortality of deadly virus infections, including COVID-19. Mortality. I mean, come on, that's a huge statement. So let's keep on going. I'll just do a couple more. This is Life Sciences, June of 2020. It's COVID-19, melatonin as a potential adjuvant treatment. It's the Chinese Academy of Medical Sciences. So these studies are literally coming in from all over the world because it's urgent we find something to protect people this winter. It's urgent. The evidence that excessive inflammation, oxidation, and an exaggerated immune response contribute to COVID-19 pathology. In other words, the damage caused by the infection. This leads to a cytokine storm, so that's the immune system destroying things, and subsequent progression to acute lung injury and acute respiratory distress syndrome. Acute respiratory distress syndrome is caused by infections like viruses, like viral pneumonia, bacterial pneumonia. COVID-19 is commonly causing it, but the flu can cause it also. And with acute respiratory distress syndrome, that's when they're in the intensive care unit and they're getting either oxygen or they're intubated for oxygen. And we know that this damages the lungs, that the whole scenario damages the lungs. And they go on to say, and often death because of the damage to the lungs. Melatonin, a well-known anti-inflammatory and antioxidative molecule, is protective against acute lung injury and acute respiratory distress syndrome caused by viruses and other pathogens. Notably, melatonin has a very high safety profile, so we know it's safe. There is significant data showing that melatonin limits virus-related diseases. So they're saying, hey, there's a lot of data. Melatonin helps you fight viruses and would also likely be beneficial in COVID-19 patients. In other words, they're saying we could take the data from melatonin with other viruses and bring it over here and apply it to COVID-19, even though we haven't done the studies yet, because we see the elements that are the same in each. So they say, of course, additional experiments and clinical studies are required to confirm this speculation. But I think it's true. In my personal opinion, I would be on melatonin. When Donald Trump was admitted to the hospital recently, his doctor admitted that he had already been on zinc, vitamin D, and melatonin, which is a good thing. That's very progressive in thinking to help fight off an infection. And that's a likelihood of why the president did so well, because this is a very elderly guy. He's extremely overweight, and he has a terrible diet. All of those things are really bad with a viral infection, especially COVID-19. So here's Frontiers in Medicine, May of 2020. It's University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio, and the Division of Pulmonary and Critical Care Medicine, Eastern Virginia Medical School, which would be in Norfolk, Virginia. The drugs mentioned have significant side effects and their efficacy is unknown. Okay, so they're talking about the drugs for coronavirus, which would be like hydroxychloroquine, remdesivir, lopinavir. They said we don't know if they work, and they really have side effects. So they're saying new drugs and vaccines are being designed as COVID-19 treatments, but their development and testing will require months to years. Time is not a luxury that this crisis has, which is very true. I mean, 6,000 people are dying a day, right? We suggest melatonin be given consideration for prophylactic use or treatment. Melatonin's multiple actions as an anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antiviral Make it a reasonable choice for use. Melatonin is readily available, can be easily synthesized in large quantities so we could get it to everybody, is inexpensive, has a very high safety profile, and can be easily self-administered. Melatonin, with its production diminishing with increased age, okay, so let me just paraphrase and get out of this one. They're saying, listen, as you get older, you have less melatonin. It's important to be on melatonin. You need it for your immune system. Now, here's the last one. Can melatonin reduce the severity of COVID-19 pandemic? At Secure Lab Oncology in Dedham, Massachusetts, and the Department of Molecular Biology, Ariel University in Israel. Like I said, these studies on the coronavirus and on melatonin, these recommendations are coming in from all over the world. It's the International Review of Immunology right now. And they said viruses induce an explosion of inflammatory cytokines and reactive oxygen species. So these are the things that damage you with the coronavirus or with the flu. And they go on to say, and melatonin is the best natural antioxidant that is lost with age. So as you grow older, you have less and less. The cell death from coronavirus cause, which can result in significant lung damage, is also inhibited by melatonin. So the death of your cells in your lung and the damage in your lung can be blocked by melatonin. Coronavirus causes inflammation in the lungs, which requires inflammasome activity. So let me explain what an inflammasome is. There are molecules in your immune system, like interleukins, cytokines, and they're supposed to guide the immune system, but in coronavirus, not only are they guiding the immune system, they overguide it, and you wind up with lung damage and possibly death. So coronavirus causes inflammation in the lungs, which requires inflammasome activity. Melatonin blocks these inflammasomes. So melatonin on many levels is something that really should be investigated for the coronavirus. However, we don't have the luxury of waiting for those studies, which could take months. People will be dying in the meantime. People will have lung damage. People will have brain damage. I think it's essential right now to take melatonin. It's very safe, especially if you're elderly, where the level of melatonin is waning. It's dropping. It drops with age. So if you're over 60, I would strongly consider melatonin. In fact, I'm going to start taking it this weekend, because I want to test it on Saturday night. Every other day I have a radio program in the morning, or I'm doing a podcast. Sunday morning, I don't have anything. So I want to see if melatonin makes me sleep too late. So I'm going to start using melatonin this Saturday night, which is tomorrow. It's Friday. So melatonin, I think it's responsible to use it, especially if you're older. One of the reasons why our immune system becomes less and less effective at fighting cancer and fighting viruses and bacteria as we grow older is there's a drop in melatonin release. And as there's a drop in melatonin expression, damage from the immune system and damage from viruses and bacteria could become more severe and more dangerous, but also the immune system isn't guided towards the infection as effectively and efficiently. So we really do need melatonin. Now, when you purchase melatonin, if you choose to, make sure it's a really good quality. Make sure it's a really good quality. There's a number of melatonins. I hate to say this. It's no bias or anything. It's just the way it is. A lot of the melatonin coming into the United States is coming from China, and they really don't have good quality control in some of the factories in China. Some of the places are good, some of the places are great, but there's a lot of bad stuff coming into the country from China, just like subpar. So I would be really careful. For instance, when we make our melatonin, we make sure it's pharmaceutical grade, and our source is American. We get our melatonin locally. So just make sure you buy a quality product for melatonin. Make sure it's a company you trust, that you know is a high quality company. One caveat: if you have an autoimmune disease like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, we don't really know how melatonin interacts with autoimmune diseases. So before you use melatonin, if you have an autoimmune disease, discuss its use with your medical doctor. Thank you. Thank you for tuning into the Invite Health Podcast. You can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts, or you could just visit invitehealth.com/podcast. Please make sure you subscribe. Please leave us a review. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. I hope to see you next time on another episode of the Invite Health Podcast, and thank you so much for listening.